All right, so let's talk Monday Night Raw. So this week we kicked off Raw with Seth Rollins coming to the ring. He is once again all excited, going on and on about how he was a sole survivor and all of this. Um, he did announce that they did have a date for his match against Big E, and that would be at day one. So now we have that date. That is official. And that is great. So the plan is that they are going to have that Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor match tonight that never started last week. So while he's going on and on about all this, Finn comes down to the ring. And uh, he starts going after Seth before the match even starts. And the two start brawling, but they managed to get it quiet enough to actually get the match underway. And this was a very good back and forth match. It really was. Um, there were some good moments for both Seth and Finn. And honestly, I don't know that it really matters that much for the win. It kind of gives Seth some momentum going into his championship match at day one, but I don't know that he necessarily needed it, and I don't think it necessarily hurt Finn for Seth to take this win. Um, I feel like Finn still came out looking fairly strong in this. He kicked out of some pretty good things. I believe he maybe even kicked out of a stomp. I don't remember for sure, but he he kicked out of a couple of good hits. So he still looked very strong. And I don't really think that feud is completely done either. And that'll give Seth something to do after this championship match. Whether he comes out the champion or not, it's going to give him something to do. Um, so then we turn to a recap of Becky taunting Liv last week. And this is just before the contract signing is going to be taking place. But before that happens, we go to Vince's office. And he has invited Austin Theory in to watch the show with him. This is kind of a big deal. Not just everybody gets to watch the show with the boss, right? He did give Austin Theory a warning, though. He said, if you ever steal from me again, I will kill you. So that was kind of a fun little segment. And it was kind of a nice rub for Austin Theory to get to watch the show with the boss. Yeah, so that was good. Then we go back to the ring, and at this point, Becky is coming down to the ring, or is already there with Sonya, and they get Liv Morgan down. Um, as Becky's going on and on about how last week Liv had this fire, and it was the first time that, for a long time, that she's seen that fire, and she was glad she had it, and said, "You're welcome for that." Liv wasn't really having any of that. Becky continued to run her mouth till Liv eventually finally just told her to shut up and just sign the contract. So um, at this point, both women are ready to sign this contract. I don't know if Becky had signed it yet when Liv brought up that after Survivor Series, after the match against Charlotte, there was an interview backstage with Becky, and she was very emotional about it. There may have been some tears. It was kind of an emotional thing, but I didn't. I agree with some others that this is kind of a conflicting thing because they want Liv to be the baby face of this match, right? And to have her bring up this emotional moment for Becky and to kind of nag her about it. And so I didn't know Big Time Bex cried, that kind of thing was kind of a mean spirited thing to do, kind of more of a heelish thing to do. I would not say at all that it was turning heel, but it was not necessarily a nice thing to do. Um, but to some extent, it does kind of show that light of Liv kind of pushing back against Becky, kind of holding her own in that scenario, and more building toward that match, making it maybe a little more personal, somewhat. So that was it was a good segment. Sonya did not let them actually brawl. So no tables were flipped over or chairs thrown or anything like that. They did try, but that didn't end up happening. Um, at the end of the day, with this segment, Liv ended up accepting Becky's challenge to a 5-on-5 tag team match, with Liv being the leader of her team and Becky being the leader of her team. So we would see that later on. And Liv agreed to that match and they made that official. We then see the graphic for who is going to be on those teams, and we'll get into that later when that match actually happens. For now, we're going to head backstage, and Randy Orton is standing there, and Riddle rolls up, and he's wearing his shoes. Says, "Hey, Randy," and he seemed very confused. He was like, "Randy, where are your shorts?" And Randy's like, "What are you talking about, Riddle?" Riddle totally expected after last week when Riddle dressed up like Randy that this week Randy would come dressed up as Riddle. You're not gonna happen, Riddle. Randy was not amused, but he wasn't necessarily upset about the whole thing. Um, what kind of got on his nerves, I think, a little. So Riddle asked Randy to close his eyes. They had a surprise. Randy really wasn't having this, but he closed his eyes anyway. I I laughed so hard when Riddle put this wig on Randy's head, kind of giving him kind of a Riddle appearance. It was hilarious. Randy says, "You've got 2 seconds to take this thing off my head." I really am amused by these two. It was actually a really good idea to put them together. I think it's done a lot for Riddle's career, just working with Randy. And you know that behind the scenes, Randy has probably given him all kinds of advice, okay, on bettering himself, his character, all of this. And who better really than Randy Orton? He's been in this business for so long, right? And he can go back and forth between heel and babyface. He can turn things around so quickly. He really is one of the best that you could really learn from, especially even being a second, I think a second generation. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong about that, but um, he's at the very least second generation superstar. So he really can teach Riddle a lot. So this has been a good tag team. They're entertaining as hell. Um, so they're going out. They are putting the Raw Tag Team Championships on the line against the Dirty Dogs. Um, I I don't mind Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. They're decent heel team. Um, And even with what was going on with Omos and AJ, they still are very much a heelish team. Um, I I'm kind of hoping that at some point before very long at all, they touch base back with that storyline between them and Omos and AJ, because I'm kind of intrigued as to where that could go. Um, they kind of started leading into it and then just dropped it. So we then had Randy Orton pick up the win against Dolph Ziggler with an RKO, and they retained the Raw Tag Team Championships. I don't hate this. I wouldn't necessarily have hated seeing the titles on Ziggler and Rude. It would not have been horrible. Something different. And I think at some point we're going to see that. And maybe they are waiting until they can lead more into maybe a split up between Riddle and Orton. And right now it's just not the time for that. And that's why they're waiting on that, possibly. So that's good. They retained. Um, we then move back to backstage. Rollins is walking around and he runs into Kevin Owens, who informs him, "Hey, guess what? My match tonight against Big E, if I win, I'm getting added to your championship match at day one." And Rollins like, "Wait, what? No, I've not heard anything about this. This is not happening." Um, so Owens then tells him to go find Adam Pearce. And we'll get back to that here in a little bit because that does happen. But first, we are going to. So, Edge makes his entrance, and then we're going to go to a break. So, when we come back, we go back to Rollins, who does find Adam Pearce and asks him about what Kevin said. And Adam is like, "You know better than to take what Kevin says at face value. That hasn't been necessarily discussed at all." Um, so Sonya Deville comes in after that, and you can tell that they're thinking about this. And you can tell that they're thinking, this might not be a bad idea, actually. And it's like, oh, Seth, now you just gave them an idea. Oh, what did you do? But again, we'll get back to that in a little bit because that story does come back up. We then go back to Edge in the ring that talks about surviving a war at Hell in a Cell, or in Hell in a Cell against Seth, and that he doesn't hate that Seth's the number one contender for Big E's title, that he absolutely deserves it. He's on another level right now, and he absolutely is. And he starts naming off names: AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Big E, and all of these things. And that was when The Miz makes his return, because that is awesome. I love The Miz. Okay, the guy is another one of those that can go from heel to babyface in the drop of a hat, however the audience is feeling that night. The fact that he has been away for a while, he's been doing Dancing with the Stars, which comes into play in this promo as Edge gives him a little bit of grief about when he was voted off for that. Um, but Miz and Maurice look fantastic. And just between the two of them, they're great. They really are. And I am wondering with all of this, um, if they are leading toward potentially a Miz and Maurice against Edge and Beth Phoenix. I would not hate it. That would be exciting. It would. Um, and I kind of hope that that's where they're going with it. However, Beth was not actually mentioned in the promo, but that doesn't mean her name can't still come up later. Say, for instance, next week, they could still build to it. So there is that. Um, that was kind of an exciting promo. It really was. It was good to see the Miz. It really was. It was good to see Maurice back. So this next segment, I don't really, I don't know where it's necessarily leading. So we saw AJ Styles and Omos. They're being interviewed, and they're asked about AJ wearing the sunglasses, and you can kind of tell that Omos is kind of helping him figure out where to look, which direction to kind of turn. And you get the impression that he can't see after being sprayed in the face with the fire extinguisher. So this is leading to the match between the Alpha Academy and the Street Profits. So they come out to ringside to watch it commentary. And while they're at commentary, you still get that impression that AJ can't actually see. Now, the play by play is really interesting throughout this because Corey Graves is literally trying to give AJ play by play because he thinks AJ can't see. He can't tell what's happening. And AJ is helping that along by saying, "What's going on? What's going on? I heard something, but what happened?" And that kind of thing. Um, so the Street Profits ended up picking up the win, but it was with somewhat of a distraction by AJ Styles, who suddenly jumps up and rushes onto the ring apron. Oh, wait a minute. How did you even know it was there? And he almost got kicked by Ford while he was up on that ring apron, but he jumped back down. Well, the glasses got knocked off and he landed on the floor. Well, the match ends, but you see Omos looking down on him. Omos can tell he could see. And Omos is looking at him like, what game are you trying to play here? Who are you trying to kid? Why would you fake not being able to see? And that's the part that I don't know where it's going. I don't know if I'm hoping that they split this team up or not. I don't think that Omos is quite ready for necessarily a singles run or necessarily singles competition, so to speak, completely on his own. But I'm wondering if that's somewhat not where they're going, if they're maybe planting a seed for that split eventually down the line. I feel like they definitely could use Styles and Omos in the tag division still, so hopefully that doesn't happen anytime soon. But you could tell that Omos was not happy that AJ was not just playing the audience, but him. So we'll see exactly where that comes into play. Um So what do we have next? So next we have Kevin Owens is on his phone, and Seth rolls up and he's crowing at him about lying about the match. And Kevin insists he's not lying. He says if he wins tonight, he will be in the title match at day one. This eventually is going to send Rollins back to Adam Pearce, but we'll get to that when that happens. Now we have to go back to the ring because we're getting a United States Championship match between Damian Priest and Apollo Crews. This match was pretty decent. It was a lot of back and forth. Priest got frustrated. And at that point, it was partly because there was interference by Commander Aziz. However, he didn't think the official noticed it. And I don't know that the official really noticed it, but he kind of had a very good suspicion that something had happened. And so he kicked Commander Aziz from ringside. And of course, Apollo Crews was not happy about that. He absolutely wasn't. But apparently he let it go. At this point, Damian is getting back in the ring and he is not happy. And that was when everything kind of went south for Apollo. In very quick order, Damian picked up the win and retained the United States Championship. And now we are going to go back to Adam and Sonya. They are with Seth. And he says, I don't want to stooge you, but you probably should do something about Kevin Owens. And that was when Adam Pearce breaks it to him that, well, they decided that after hearing about this, they actually thought it was a pretty good idea, and so they made that official. And now there's a stipulation to this match tonight that says if Kevin Owens wins the match against Big E, he will be added to the match. So then we have the Hurt Business taking on, and this is just Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin taking on the Mysterios. Bobby Lashley does not come out, but they are now listing them as officially the Hurt Business again. So that's kind of cool. And it's kind of nice to see Cedric and Shelton back together. I think that's going to do wonders for the tag division. And maybe that's where they go next for the tag division. And I wouldn't be upset if when Riddle and Orton drop them, if it isn't to Cedric and Shelton, I would not be opposed to that. There was a kind of cool double 619. So that was kind of fun. The Mysterios did get the pinfall with the frog splash that was hit by Dominic Mysterio. That's kind of a fun way to kind of end that. Then we have that is our main event, is it not? Yes, I believe it is maybe our main event. So then we have Team Liv and Team Bex. So, Team Becky consists of Becky Lynch, Carmella, Doudrop, Tamina, and Zelina Vega. Team Liv consists of Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair, Dana Brooke, Nikki ASH, and Rhea Ripley. This was a good back and forth bout. It really was. I enjoyed it. I think everybody kind of got in the ring and got to showcase what they could do. There was a nice I'm trying to think what Carmella calls it. She got her submission lock into place, and that was kind of cool. It didn't and code of silence. That's what I'm looking for. Um, However, Dana Brooke broke that up for the baby faces. That's okay because it gave the match a little bit longer, which I think it really kind of needed. So that was kind of fun. Ultimately, Team Liv would end up picking up the win. Afterwards, everything kind of broke down. We had Becky Lynch attack Liv Morgan. Doudrop started attacking Bianca Belair, and it went all over the place. We had Morgan eventually took out Lynch and with the Oblivion, and you see Becky by the barricades, and she's hollering, "Where's my title? Where's my title?" She wants that back so she can get the heck out of there. um. So then we go back to Austin Theory and Vince in the office. Theory looked away from him when he'd asked if Becky's team expected the unexpected. And then he got upset because he looked away from him. That kind of went back and forth there. I honestly didn't understand a whole lot of what was going on there. To be honest, and I don't know where all of that is even necessarily leading. We then got another vignette, if you will, for Veer coming to the show. He's looking really good. I'm actually kind of excited for Veer. I'm not that excited about either Shanky or I don't even Jinder Mahal. That's the name I'm looking for. I'm really not that excited for them. Veer looks good, and I'm kind of intrigued on how they're going to play that when he actually makes his entrance. Hopefully, they do not destroy this. Hopefully, they follow up this hype that they've been giving him, but that will only come with time. So then, Big E is interviewed, and they ask him how he feels about this match, and he essentially says he fears no man, nor Kevin Owens. But he did agree that a triple threat would mean it'd be harder to retain the title. But if that's what it was, that's what it was. We then get ready for this Big E Kevin Owens match. And of course, Seth wants to come down to the ring to watch this match. And that's fine. He said at commentary, no issue with that, right? That went back and forth for a while, and it was a pretty decent match. However, Kevin Owens gets jumped by Seth Rollins in the ring. Well, that causes a disqualification, Seth. And Seth was really extremely proud of himself for this too. Until Kevin Owens was grinning, and Seth couldn't figure out why. And that's when Kevin breaks it to him that, well, I'm the winner of the match. It may have been by disqualification, but I won the match. I'm being added to your match for the championship at day one. And that's when he realizes what he just did. Because then it became official that it would now be a triple threat match. Seth starts freaking out. He's ripping his shirt off. He's all upset with himself now. And sometimes you don't make the brightest moves, Seth. I don't hate that this is going to be a triple threat match, and I kind of wondered if that's where this was going when Seth and Kevin started getting into this. I don't hate it. I think it'll be a good, entertaining match at the pay-per-view. And I think that they're going to take care of the lead up to that match very well and hype that pretty decently. All right, and that is Monday Night Raw.